A very good morning to all the students of Euro School Airoli. Today I would like to discuss the origin of the Indian National Congress. Students, at its inception, the Congress had no well-defined ideology and commanded few of the resources essential for a political organization. It functioned more as a debating society that met annually to discuss its loyalty to the Raj and passed numerous resolutions on less controversial issues such as civil rights or opportunities in the government, especially in the civil services. These resolutions were then submitted to the Viceroy's government and occasionally to the British Parliament. But the Congress's early gains were meagre. Despite its claim to represent all of India, the Congress voiced the interest of only the urban elite, and the number of participants from other economic backgrounds remained negligible. According to A.O. Hume, the aims of the Indian Congress were 1. To make British rule long lasting in India, 2. To make Indians satisfied and proud citizens of the British Empire, and finally, to function as an opposition party in the British Parliament by criticizing and suggesting proper remedies in the British administration. So, does it mean that there was no political organization before the Indian National Congress? No, it isn't so. Before the inception of the Indian National Congress, there existed other small political platforms for the Indians. These organizations limited their focus to safeguard the interest of a particular class or group. The Indian Association, set up by Surendranath Banerjee, was probably the most active among the earlier political organizations. The focus of the Indian Association was to create mass awakening among the Indians and to create a strong public opinion in the country on the issues of national importance. Gradually, these organizations united the Indians on a common political platform, and gradually the masses became critical of the political policies of the British. Some important political associations that existed before the emergence of the Indian National Congress were the British Indian Association. It operated in Chennai, Bengal, and Mumbai. It looked after the interests of the landlords. East India Association was set up by Dadabhai Naoroji in London. It aimed at mobilizing public opinion about India in England. Poona Sabha, it was set up by M.G. Ranade in Pune. Indian Association in 1876 was set up by S.M. Banerjee at Kolkata. Madras Mahajan Sabha in 1881, it was set up by G. Subramaniam Iyer and others in Chennai. Bombay Presidency in 1885 was set up in Mumbai against the rise of taxes in the region. Now I would like to discuss the theories behind the birth of the Congress. There are two theories on which historians try to explain the birth of the national level organization known as the Congress. The first one, the need of a headquarter for the movement. Now, students, we've already analyzed the revolt of 1857. We've looked at what were the results of the revolt. We definitely did not succeed in ousting the British in 1857. Having analyzed the consequences, one glaring reason why we failed was because the revolt was localized only in the northern India. Southern India, parts of eastern India, western India remained indifferent to the revolt. Hence, taking a lesson from them, the political thinkers and leaders realized that a nation and its people become capable of meaningful and effective political action only when they are organized. As a part of the growth of the national movement, hence it was necessary to create an all-India political leadership that would be looked upon as the headquarters of the movement. Hence, on this then common political platform, political workers from different parts of the country would come together, conduct their activities, and mobilize the people on an all-India basis. The founders of the Congress realized that the requirement of a national movement was a national leadership. The role of Alan Octavian Hume, the father of the Congress, was pivotal as he was British and the British allowed the Congress to come into existence. The second theory was the safety valve theory. The British foresaw the political situation in the country leading to another rebellion along the lines of the revolt of 1857. This is something which they could not afford to. To avoid such a situation, the British decided to provide an outlet to the local people where they could discuss their political problems. To this end, Alan Octavian Hume, a retired British civil servant, had a series of meetings with Lord Dauphin, the Viceroy. He also invited and visited people in England and met people such as Don Brigand, Sir James Caird, Lord Ripon, and other members of the British Parliament. Hume also had the support of a large number of Englishmen in India, including George Yule, Charles, Sir William. On his return from Britain, Hume consulted the local Indian leaders and started working towards the establishment of an all India political organization. The convention of the Indian National Union, an organization he had already formed in 1884, was held in Mumbai. In December 1885, 70 delegates, most of whom were lawyers, educationists, journalists, attended the convention where the Indian National Congress was formed. Now let's understand the objectives of the first session of the Congress. The objectives of the first session of the Indian National Congress are as follows. The first one was the development and consolidation of national unity amongst the Indian masses, irrespective of religion, region, and caste divide. Having taken on the lesson from the revolt of 1857, the national leaders wanted India to be woven into a single thread. Second, establishing friendly relations and sympathizing with the efforts of the nationalist workers operating in different regions of the country. Again, having realized that one of the major reasons for the failure of the revolt of 1857 was the lack of coordination between the different sections of the society, the Indian National Congress aimed again at uniting the workers working for the common goal into a single thread. The third, form an agreement on popular demands and important issues and present it before the government. Having realized that the British rule in India would require a lot of convincing to be done away with, this was just the beginning. So the foremost aim of the Indian National Congress was to list down the things that could be asked from the British as a means to redress grievances and to create a system which had Indian interests in mind. Why would an Englishman organize to start an all India political organization? Many of you may be propelled by this question. I would like to give you a background on AOU. The rise of the Indian national movement started in the year 1880. Alan Octavian Hume, an Englishman and retired civil servant, had studied medicine and surgery. He came to India in 1848 as a part of the civil service officer. Having served in India, he decided to stay back in India for inculcating the spirit of nationalism in the Indian youth. Now, why was he propelled to do it? The racial discrimination and inequality of the Indians under the British rule inspired Hume to form the Indian National Congress with the help of Vyomesh Chandra Banerjee in 1884. Hence, rightly, he is known as the father of the Indian National Congress. He also served as the first General Secretary of the Indian National Congress. The founding members of the Indian National Congress. Most of the early members of the Congress were upwardly mobile and successfully Western educated elites engaged in professions such as law, teaching, and journalism. They had acquired political experience from regional competitions in their professions and from their aspirations in securing nominations to various positions in legislative councils, universities, and special commissions. Among the founding members were some of the leaders such as Dadabhai Nauroji, Badruddin Tayabji, Anand Mohan Bose, R.C. Datta, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, G. Subramaniam Iyer, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Mahadev Govind Ranade. To begin with, the Congress acted as a king's party. To begin with, the Congress acted as a king's party. All the founding members backed the four basic objectives of the Congress. First, to seek cooperation of all Indians in its effort. Second, to bring an end to the race, creed, and provincial prejudices and to form national unity. Third, to discuss and solve the social problems of the country. Four, to request the government to give more share to the Indians in administrative affairs. As the time went by, the Congress changed its stand and apparently became the biggest opposition of the British government. The Poona meeting. HUME, in association with various national leaders, called for the first meeting in Poona on 28 December 1885. The conference received the unanimous support of all leaders, but later the venue had to be shifted to Mumbai. The first session. The leaders decided to rename the Indian National Union as the Indian National Congress during the first session. Lord Ray, the governor of Mumbai, was invited to convene the first session as the president. But on his refusal, the session was then held under the presidentship of Vomesh Chandra Banerjee. Vomesh Chandra Banerjee was a veteran lawyer from Calcutta. About 72 delegates from all over India attended the conference. This was a truly national gathering with leaders such as Dadabhai Naoroji, Mahadev Govind Ranade, Firoz Shah Mehta, T.N. Talang. The main demands put forth at this session were 1. Reforms of the Legislative Council and acceptance of election in place of nomination as a principle to constitute them. Second, a simultaneous examination of the ICS to be held, that is, the Indian Civil Service, to be held in India and England. Third, reduction in military expenditure. And fourth, opposition to the annexation of Upper Burma. The moderate period. At first, the Congress was a moderate constitutional movement. In its early days, the party confined itself to an annual debate where political issues were discussed. It asked the government to remedy complaints but had no constitutional role. However, some Congress members were also members of the Legislative Assembly, which advised the Viceroy and the Executive Committee on the drafting of new laws. The cause of the Indian National Congress spread rapidly among the middle class Indians. With the founding of Indian National Congress, the struggle of Indian independence was launched in a small, hesitant, and mild but organized manner. The first 2 decades of the Indian National Congress are described in history as one of with moderate demands and a sense of confidence in the British justice and generosity. Its aim was not to be aggressive in attaining independence, lest the British should suppress them. This resulted in the Indian Council Act in 1892, which allowed some members to be indirectly elected by the Indians but kept their office majority intact.